Tell me about the book. Well, first, the book Bleeding Fire, you mentioned to us 2 weeks ago when we were supposed to have this. I think you were saying that your book was already out. You got, there we go, Bleeding Fire, Bleeding Fire. So tell us about that and tell us what inspired the title.
All righty. So, um, I had no intention of writing a book
Hmm.
because I was too busy. I wasn't thinking about writing a book. I was busy doing community service, working with children, working with adults, working with my husband, Dr. James Brown. And one day, my husband came in, and it just out of the blue, it just seemed totally out of the blue. And he said, "Why don't you have a book?"
Mm.
And I looked, I was like, what? Well, I started thinking about for 21 years, I did direct care for people in my family. So I had ill people and took care of them for 21 years. And so I worked in the practice. I was community outreach, director of community outreach. We did all kinds of community outreach for years in Flint.
Mhm.
I, it was just so much that I was doing. The last thing on my mind was to write a book. And he said, you need a book and you need everything in it. Your academic work, you need your poetry, your curriculum work. And I said, what kind of book is that? Just mixing everything together.
Mhm.
And he said, a book has never been written. And so I had been invited to the Charles Wright Museum of African American History to present a poetry production that spring. And this is probably October, maybe.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, if I am going to write a book, that would be a great place to debut it. And so I
Amen.
spent that time gathering my work and writing more things. And so it's not an ordinary poetry book in the sense where it's just straight poems. There are essays in it to help to
Yeah.
contextualize the poetry
Mhm.
and
Yes.
explanation. And
Background
so,
stories on the poetry, background information. Yeah, I have a file
yes,
that's called background. I have this whole thing laid out for my poetry collections. One is political and one is about growing up, you know,
yes.
in Detroit with entertainers and military people. So it's just
Ooh, sounds
interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's great, but the important thing is you got somebody coming home and saying, "When are you gonna write your book?" You got somebody who's holding you accountable. Accountable. That's the
Yes,
important thing. So,
he helped, yeah, exactly. It would not have been written, and he has an entire chapter dedicated to him
uh,
and to our love
that's
and the
love.
work we've been able to do in the community called Fusion. And so
Uh-huh.
my work is a melding because I have a science background of literature and the sciences all at once together. And so all of the chapters were like one chapter is radioactivity, and that concerns so that's social commentary. In fact, the book is part memoir,
Hmm.
part social commentary, and part magical realism. And it's been described as an odyssey in African American history and culture.
So how can
And
people
so
get Bleeding Fire?
right now it's on Amazon, and that's
Amazon.
how you can get it right now. You know, many of the
Amazon.
bookstores are closed, but
Yeah.
some of them are open. But right now it's on Amazon. You just go Bleeding Fire, tap the eternal spring of regenerative life. Long
Oh,
title. I
yeah.
know. Why
And
do I
you've
have
got
such a
a
long title?